We begin in Ukraine, where they are clearing the rubble and counting the dead. Overnight, Russia launched an attack on the capital, one of the largest since the war began 3.5 years ago. At least 18 people have been killed, including children. Dozens more are injured. A European Union diplomatic mission was also struck, prompting the EU to summon the Russian envoy.
Shortly before dawn in Kyiv. The end of yet another night of deadly Russian bombardment. And this is the aftermath. Nearly 100 buildings sustained damage in the combined missile and drone attack.
The missile hit, and people were simply thrown by the impact. They were lying there. There was a woman, a wife, and her child. The woman was under a cement block. Her head was cut open. It was split open. It was cut. She was under this block. We were not able to lift it. It was only when the emergency services came, they used a lift. But she was not saved.
A missile flew in and exploded. Just look at the aftermath. Everything is destroyed.
Among the buildings damaged by the Russian barrage was the EU delegation's headquarters in Kyiv. It has caused anger in Brussels.
It shows that the Kremlin will stop at nothing to terrorize Ukraine, blindly killing civilians, men, women and children, and even targeting the European Union. This is why we are keeping maximum pressure on Russia. That means tightening our sanctions regime.
In Moscow, the Kremlin said it was still interested in pursuing peace talks with Ukraine, but accused Kyiv of attacks on Russia. Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov told journalists in this audio recording, quote, "You can see that attacks on Russian infrastructure and often on Russian civilian infrastructure by the Kyiv regime are also continuing. The Russian armed forces are also fulfilling their tasks. They continue to hit military facilities and affiliated military infrastructure. The strikes are successful. The targets are destroyed." Back in Kyiv, it's another day on which innocent lives have been lost. Peace talks to end the torment of war, for now at least, are not on the horizon.
Well, reacting to this latest Russian attack on Kyiv, German Chancellor Friedrich Merz posted the following on social media. Last night, Russia showed its true face again. We categorically condemn the deadly attack on civilians. That the EU mission has been brought into the firing line is proof of the growing ruthlessness of the Russian regime. Well, our correspondent in Kyiv, Nick Connolly, had told me more.
So right now, Phil, authorities here are talking of 19 dead and more presumed still to be found under the rubble. That is all on the other end of town, on the left bank of the river here in Kyiv. I'm downtown at a site where 2 cruise missiles hit about kind of 5:45 in the morning, just behind me there. That is also the area where you have the EU representative office and also the British Council Cultural Centre, along with offices and residential buildings. Basically, in the last few hours here, they have just been taking out truckloads and truckloads of broken glass and rubble, cars that were destroyed. Thankfully, no one was killed here, but certainly it is extremely unusual for such an attack to be so central. Normally, these missiles only reach suburbs of Kyiv, but we are here basically as close to downtown Kyiv as you can get. And there is just a sense of people kind of being a bit kind of shocked and not really quite being able to believe that this has happened. They're coming up, taking pictures, trying to work out how big the extent of the damage is. We had a bit of a lull the last few weeks when the Russians had targeted other cities close to the front lines, but not Kyiv so much, because Trump essentially had said he wasn't happy with his attacks on Kyiv, and so there was kind of about a month of pretty quiet nights here in Kyiv.
Now, the Kremlin insists it does still want peace talks. How credible is that after an attack like this?
Well, I think people in Ukraine never believed that anyway. All the time, kind of when you speak to people here, they will tell you they are convinced that Vladimir Putin still wants to take a whole lot more territory and that he is just fobbing Donald Trump off, that he is playing for time. I think that perception of Russia's willingness for peace is only relevant for one person. It is about Donald Trump and what he thinks about all this. We certainly saw Ursula von der Leyen there, the President of the European Commission, reaching out, calling Trump today, trying to kind of draw his attention to these stark images from Kyiv. Same thing from Trump's Ukraine envoy, Keith Kellogg, posting about the attacks on civilians here. And when the Russians say it is all the same as what the Ukrainians are doing to us, that is just simply not true. Ukraine's attacks on, for instance, Russia's oil infrastructure do not come with these kinds of civilian casualties as these recent attacks on Kyiv by Russia. I think the kind of biggest takeaway, I think, for most Ukrainians when you talk to them is that people will now start paying a bit more attention to those air alerts. They will start going to the shelters, or at least getting away from the windows. They had got used to that earlier on this summer when you'd had kind of hundreds of drones and missiles coming in every night. And it seems like that lull now, Russia is basically turning back on the tap, and people here are expecting a pretty uncomfortable autumn.
Right, and as you say, an attack on the very centre of the Ukrainian capital, unusual, even though, of course, Kyiv has seen attacks before. What does this tell us about how this war is progressing?
Well, there's always the worry here in Ukraine that that means that the air defences are running low and that the Ukrainian forces are basically having to let missiles fly past them that they could intercept if they have been provided with the munitions they need, essentially by America, because this is about the Patriot missile system that is the most important in terms of intercepting ballistic missiles, but also there are systems that Europe provides to deal with cruise missiles, the kind of missiles that hit behind me here. I think it's also just about the sheer volume. Russia is doing fewer of these attacks than they used to, but they are getting bigger to try and overwhelm the system. This was an attack that basically took the best part of 3 hours with ballistic missiles followed by drones and then the cruise missiles. So it is just very, very difficult for Ukraine's air defences, even in cities as well defended as Kyiv, to be everywhere all the time. And I think, people here have got used to it, but it is a very stark reminder. There was a video from one resident here in Kyiv showing the security cameras while she was sitting in her bathroom what it looks like when one of those Russian Shahed drones blows up your windows and sends the glass flying through the apartment. Her message to people in Kyiv was, do not ignore the signals, at least get behind a wall away from the windows if you can. And I think that's something that people here are going to be taking a whole lot more seriously in the nights to come.
Thanks for that, Nick. Nick Connolly in Kyiv. Let's look at the thinking behind this, if we can, with Ivana Stradner, who is an expert in Russian security strategies with the Foundation for Defense of Democracies. She joins us from Washington, D.C. Welcome to DW. Let's start with this massive attack on the Ukrainian capital. Should we regard that as just business as usual for Vladimir Putin, or is this a message? Is he deliberately trying to undermine Donald Trump's peace initiatives?
I would say it's both. It's business as usual because that's typical Putin's playbook. But more importantly, this is also a message. Whoever believes that Putin is willing to negotiate in good faith is sorely mistaken, because this war in Ukraine, it's not only about Ukraine. For Putin, this war is to take the whole of Ukraine and also to challenge the West, and by showing that the West is a paper tiger. So what we saw for the past 24 hours is devastating. This is one of the largest attacks since 2022 on Kyiv. Second point, just the very first fact that he attacked British Council as well as EU mission tells you all you need to know, that Putin is willing to mock the West and Europe and to show that they are not willing and able to retaliate. The third point that I want to make, Putin's new generation of warfare is very important to understand, because we have been facing sabotage activities across the West. And the fourth point that I also want to make, this is also a message for President Trump, given that Russia already attacked U.S. company a few days ago, and to put more pressure on Washington not to proceed with severe sanctions out of fear of escalations. We should not fall for Putin's tricks.
Okay, let's take that point then, this idea of goading Donald Trump. Do you believe there is a limit to Donald Trump's patience with this conflict? And if there is that likely to look like him walking away or stepping up?
President Trump has been trying to be kind with words when it comes to Putin for months, trying to give him a way to fulfill his obligations. And I think that President Trump is seeing through Putin's games. What happened on Friday, Putin wanted to have a meeting, he got it. And now the ball is in Putin's court. I do believe that President Trump still has very, very important cards, which is massive secondary sanctions against Russia. And second thing is to provide Kyiv with all the weapons that Kyiv needs to win this war on the battlefield. President Trump just a few days ago gave another deadline to Putin for the next few weeks, and I truly hope that he's going to follow through with our European allies. Speaking of which, our center of gravity is alliances. And one thing that I truly hope to see in the coming weeks is the EU, is the UK, and the US speaking in one voice, which means very severe secondary sanctions and more weapons to Ukraine.
But regardless of whether they all speak with one voice, it seems to me it's clear from what you have said that the voice that matters the most is the United States. Putin will continue to do what Putin does until Donald Trump chooses to walk away or to escalate his retaliation in some way.
You're absolutely right that the US plays a pivotal role because we do have power to impose sanctions that can truly hurt Russia's center of gravity, which is energy, which is Russian alliances, and which is Russian economy. And the second thing is we do also have power to retaliate against Russian future attacks by providing Ukraine long-range missiles and other weapons that can severely damage Russia. I think that President Trump is truly becoming tired of Putin's lies because every time when Washington gives Putin a chance, Putin actually retaliates and gives us, to put in quotation mark, a gift by attacking Ukraine even more. My concern is that Putin is playing a very powerful game in Washington, which is trying to manipulate President Trump by providing more business opportunity between Russia and Washington. Peace through trade never work. And I truly hope that President Trump will not fall for this game.
Thanks for talking us through that, Ivana. Ivana Stradner from the Foundation for Defense of Democracies.
Thank you.